old Nintendo gamer.
And son.
So it was HOT from the forums. He got in touch with us, as you can, at, you can get us in touch, like I said before, on our Twitter account at N-E Café 2, on Facebook or Instagram at N-E Café Podcast, or, like HOT did, at the N-E Café thread in the N-Europe forums. And he's asked us this. The release of the latest patch for 3D Mario Collection got me thinking, outside of wanting to be part of the zeitgeist, is it worth buying games on day one anymore? And then he added this to his comment to clarify his thoughts, and I'll read through it, and then we can go through a few points that I've addressed. The Mario Collection got a substantial update that is a bit of a middle finger to those who already bought it. I'm thinking of you here, Nick, because you said, I don't want to go back to it. I finished it and finished the game, and it's not the first time that day one owners have been burned. Also, it seems like games are adding more gas, games as a service type elements to them, meaning a lot of the time when you buy on day one is a very different experience by the time all the patches and updates and all these services have been added. More and more, I feel that people who buy on day one are nothing more than beta testers for developers and publishers. It's very rare now to buy a game that's actually a finished product out of the box. There's also the price to consider. The arrival of PS5 and the new Xbox has seen an increase in the price of software, something which has been slowly rising during this generation, and asking now, obviously, for PS5. I don't know if Xbox Series X are doing this £70 games as well, but £70 for a possibly unfinished product is certainly a hard sell for HOT. So what's your feelings, first of all, on day one patches, Greg?
Day one patches are frustrating in the sense that you know that obviously the game has been sent out unfinished in the first place. But at least you know when you're getting the game, it is being updated on the first day. At least you know you're getting like a better experience than what you would have got in the situation with the Mario Collection, where there were features missing for a few weeks, which have obviously been now introduced, and people are just starting to play it will get the benefit of that, whereas people like Nick obviously didn't. But yeah, like sometimes you just yearn for the days when like you went to the shop, picked up a game, and that was the game. You plugged it in, you turned it on within seconds, you're playing. There's no like waiting for something to download or thinking, maybe they'll improve this in a few weeks with a patch or whatever. It was what it was, and you got on with it. And like obviously I was telling you last week about my brother's struggles with the PS5, so like the sizes of updates and stuff are getting bigger and bigger, and that's not a problem for people with good internet. But there are people who have bad internet, like my brother, or some people who maybe haven't got their systems connected to the internet at all, and maybe some people that don't know how to connect it or can't afford to pay for internet every month. So patches are a wee bit of a middle finger to them, I guess, particularly day one updates.
And Vile Plume added, before I go to Nick here, he said, starting with these day one patches, on the one hand, he understands as well, like Greg said, they're necessary, just to there's a problem with it. Oh my God, we've issued this and there is a problem. We'll fix it before it comes out, right? Good, well done. As long as they're small. I've seen Nintendo do this more often now as well, haven't they? Day one patches for all their games are starting to crop up, but they do tend to be small little things that they're trying to fix there. But Vile Plume continues. Especially large 3D games are complicated, so I imagine there's many issues pop up and have slipped through quality assurance testing, or in the less pretty cases as known, but a skip due to time constraints and a plan to patch out later. It's kind of like, we'll sort that out later after we release it. That is a big concern. Great. Nick?
It's poor planning. That's what it is. In that case, when they know that the game needs to ship in the middle of November, and in October they're like, well, we haven't quite finished. Let's make the disc version and then do the patch over the next month. And that's the problem, in my opinion, the shift to digital. Discs have to be produced a long time before the release date, like produced, pressed, sent to the shops. So it's understandable that disc-based games might need a day one patch because there's that gap between production and release. And I think as we go more towards digital, I think that will slowly be eliminated. But I also think it's a failure of the developers to meet the target that they set themselves. Like, if the game is supposed to be finished in October to be sold in November, then they're not doing that. They're finishing the game in November and just publishing the disc with whatever they've got on it, which is not good, in my opinion, as we've seen with Cyberpunk getting delayed again and again and again and again.
And that went gold as well.
It did, yeah. So whatever comes on the disc isn't going to be finished. Yeah, which
280 gigabyte download, the first day one patch, by the looks of it.
But it's not just games. I don't know if you remember the film Cats that came out with Judi Dench. That got a patch after it came out at the cinema because people said it was
the fur effects. Yeah,
unbelievable. Yeah, I think it's just the pressure of making the money back as quickly as possible, and getting stuff out on time. If they say November, they have to get the game out in November no matter what. Is it 98% finished? Is it 100% finished? Doesn't matter. Get it out before Christmas.
Can you imagine on a Star Wars movie? Oh, we forgot to put the colours in for the lightsabers.
Yeah.
Oh, patch it in.
It's not good, but it's the industry pressure, I think.
Yeah.
There's so much competition now, and there's so many big AAA games that are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Budgets are getting bigger, and the pressure to make money quickly is too high, maybe, in some cases. All you need to do is look at a couple of Nintendo games. Tokyo Mirage Sessions, for example. Not something that Nintendo, I'm sure, were expecting to sell a lot. You were able to pre-download it, I think 3 or 4 months before the release date. It came out in January, and it's still version 1.0. It's not been patched at all. So it's ready, it was finished. And there's a I think Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze as well is the same. That's on version 1. There's a couple of other Nintendo published games that have the same content on the car as they still do now, but it's usually remakes and remasters rather than new games. So I think it's just comes down to planning, really. And Bayonetta is another one. Bayonetta 1 and 2 are both the 1.0 versions. Again, ports though. So I think it is, just a case of missing things in QA or being under too much pressure to get it out on time. And it's a shame because, kids, especially with the Switch, if they don't have it hooked up to the internet, sorry.
Again, a broken game.
Inferior
basically.
product,
This continues then on with post-launch content, and I'll quickly read what Vile Plume has to say, just the opening part of it anyway, because he's talking about Wargroove, and this for me is the most positive aspect of post-launch content, because Wargroove came out with a massive content anyway, and then they planned already. They had told people, we're bringing out this DLC, and then it was free, and they add in this extra scenario, which is another 20 hours of gameplay in, and it's that kind of thing that Vile Plume's on about. I said yesterday, is a game that received quite some additional content for free, expanding the base game, but the base game was already there, and the extra content was a bonus. So he's quite positive of that kind of post-launch content, and as you should imagine we all are. On the other end of it, he does mention Mario 3D All-Stars and saying that, it's not really post-launch content, but it is fixing issues or adding something which should have been there from the beginning, as we've already mentioned. Any examples, Greg, of good and bad post-launch content?
The one that kind of always sticks to me is Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U, like the DLC for that was fantastic, and it sort of seemed like an example of how to do DLC really well and what we kind of hope Nintendo might do going forward, because the base game of Mario Kart 8 had everything you could really want from a Mario Kart game, and then they just added brilliant stuff on top of it, and obviously they were charging extra for that. It wasn't free, but you'd already got your money's worth from the base game anyway. and it didn't matter really whether you were buying the game on day one and then having this as a bonus however many months or years later, or getting the game later on and being able to download it then. There was absolutely no issues with that at all. I can't think of any bad examples off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are many.
Immortals Phoenix Rising, £84.99. That's a rather sizable post-launch content. Any examples, Nick?
Good, I would say. Wargroove, as Dennis mentioned. Stardew Valley's had quite a few content updates. Enter the Gungeon has added new guns and new power-ups, but I'm on the fence with that one because the game is not the same that
it's not.
It's changed a lot, and I actually really enjoyed it. I enjoyed previous versions quite a lot. Dead Cells is probably the example of something that I don't like, because they've added a lot of new free content to the game, but they've fundamentally changed how the game plays. So now when I play that, it's not the same game that I bought, and I actually enjoy it less now. I preferred the sort of vanilla, let's say, the vanilla version of Dead Cells. And with all this new stuff and new content, it doesn't, I'm too confused when I'm playing. It's like, what's this? Why is it, what's this for? When I just want to play the game that I played 2 or whatever years ago when I bought it. And now I can't do that. It's gone forever because it's been updated. So, I mean,
there's no choices.
There's no choice.
If you give the player a choice, do you want to go back to an old version?
I think on Steam you might be able to do that. You might be able to download an old version, but I really don't know. No Man's Sky is another example of it being a positive thing, because apparently the game was awful when it came out. But
that's the developer's problem.
It is, yeah. But they're still adding content to that, and it's got quite a big fan base now. It sold a lot of copies, so it's a really weird one. I think for some games it definitely does work, but I do think it can take away something from a base game if they keep adding stuff to it, and that stuff maybe isn't quite as good or as intuitive as it was originally. It can kind of destroy a game a little bit, which is not a good thing. But I think if it's stuff of performance, user experience, or maybe add in another difficulty or something, a harder difficulty or an easier difficulty, I don't think there's a problem with that. It's just finding the balance of, keeping the game true to what it's supposed to be and not overstepping the mark, maybe, and changing it fundamentally.
So to round this post-launch content section up, I'll mention a few other people. So there's just variety of people that have written on the N-E Café thread here at the N-E forums. Ike said it's a good thing about Nintendo porting Wii U games, which is what you picked up on, Nick, there with Donkey Kong and Bayonetta and all those, to Switch, is that they contain all the DLC on cart. So everything is there. So that you've got all the post-content launch. Everything is there. And they don't need updating. They're pretty much running on version 1.0. And then Will also is talking about Mario All-Stars. He says the game is pretty much standalone when it should be launched, with everything in place on the Discord cart and no need for updates to enjoy the full experience without issue. Extras added later should be fairly minimal enhancements, but nothing that means people can upgrade who can't upgrade. Like Greg said, people who've got no internet for whatever reason, they are not missing out. He does think Nintendo pretty much always nails this, and can't think of a game or an issue with Nintendo that enhancements or changes to a game have made a Nintendo game, like you said, different from before. And I think he's right there as well.
No, I agree. I agree with him. And I think we need to stop looking at a physical version of a game as a physical version of a game. Unfortunately, it's not the same as the PS1 or the N64, where this stuff was impossible. Basically, when you buy a boxed version of a game now, that's your Steam key or your download code, basically. You're just saving a bit of space on your console. And I think it's so jarring because we're in a transition time now. And, in 20 years' time, people will have better access to the internet. That's a given. My only hope would be that for people who did buy physical games on the PS3 or Xbox 360 up until now, that they will still be able to download a patch long into the future. Because, on Steam, that's how it works. If you've got a game that's 15 years old, you can still download the latest patch. But with these old consoles, I'm not too sure how that's going to work. And if you do delete a download file for a game or a save file, you wipe your hard drive, put the disc in. When it's been wiped, what's the situation going to be? Can you download that patch, or are you just stuck forever with a broken game? So then I think since that generation, since PS2, GameCube, Xbox, we've been living in a slightly different world where a physical game is not a physical game anymore. It is just an online pass, basically, to the game, unless it's the full finished game on the disc or the cart that never gets patched.
And to talk about something we talked about earlier as well, Super Mario Maker obviously been discontinued from the Wii U eShop. Nintendo have promised that if you've already purchased it from the eShop itself, if it does get deleted from your system, you can re-download it. But the worry is, yes, you can do it now, and you can do it after April. Mm-hmm. Can you do it 10 years from now? That's another question, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So moving on to a little other thing that Dennis Feilplum he was talking about alpha and beta testers, and this is taking it to the extreme, which does happen, unfortunately, especially a lot of games on Steam. They even mention that this game is out, you can pay to buy it, but it's the alpha version, which is like the pre thing, and the beta version, which is the just before, is nearly gold, but it's not there. So you can actually purchase these alpha and beta versions of games for full price, but practically what they're asking for them. So you get early access to them. How do you feel about that, Greg?
Well, I suppose there's different aspects of it. If you're knowingly going in that this is like a pre-release version, then I don't really see the problem, because you're sort of going in as a tester and being able to for the developers being able to release the game in that state and see what works, doesn't work, and get that feedback from people. That's really valuable for what will eventually become the final game. So I don't really see a problem with that. When people are releasing games as well, this is the game, and then them missing content or being poor in certain areas and being upgraded after that without people being sort of aware that they're actually guinea pigs or whatever, that is a problem. And like I say, it's good in the sense that eventually the game will maybe be made to be better following criticisms or whatever, but yeah, it is definitely in that argument about what the main question is really. Is it worth buying games on day one? It's I think it's becoming almost rarer and rarer that you're getting the complete game on the first day anymore. And yeah.
That's what my next question basically, boys. It's that, do you buy games day one as of now? I can't think of the last game I bought day one. I really can't. It was probably Doom 2016 when it came out on Switch when it released, and I had it physical. I can't think of another game recently that I bought as day one purchases. How about you, Nick?
Well, just about alpha and beta versions before we move on. I've got an alpha version of a game on Steam. I've got Session, which is a skateboarding game, and it was very clear from the start. The price was very low, and if you buy in now, you get the full game when it eventually releases. And I had to play around with it. It's fairly complete. There's a one level, and there's a training mode. There's stuff you can do, but I think that's the thing. Transparency. That's all we need. Yeah. Just say you're buying an alpha version, you're buying a beta version. I don't know about you guys whether you'll know about this, but there was a game in the Xbox E3 thing in summer called Grounded, which was it looks like a Rare game. It's cel-shaded graphics, kind of like Minecraft-style tower defense. I can't remember exactly what it is, but that's out on Steam, and it's a beta version, and it's a $5. And it says, beta version, the full game will release later. And I've been tempted by that, actually, a little bit, to jump in on that. I haven't, but it's just that it's there. You can see it's the beta version. And I think that even if we're talking about console, Steam, whatever, if companies can be open about that and say this is version 0.02 or whatever, then I think there's no issue. It's just when a game releases on day one and it's still blatantly a beta version. That's the problem. Even though, oh no, it's a full game. And then it gets a patch a couple of weeks later and suddenly everything works better and there's a lot more content. That's not the way to do it. And as for day one, I usually feel very comfortable and confident buying Nintendo games on day one. They usually, I'd say 95% of the time, you're going to get a finished product that's going to work and is going to have very, very few, if any, bugs. The Mario 3D All-Stars thing is just unfortunate, I think, because I've 120 starred 64, I've 105 starred Sunshine, and I've got 30 to 40 on Galaxy. Zero issues. The game runs fine, everything works. I haven't noticed any bugs or glitches, so I'm happy with that purchase. The GameCube stuff is nice. GameCube controller stuff is nice. I know there's a couple of bugs in the game that have been pretty bad. I haven't experienced them, so okay, that's fine for me. But I think most of the time, I got Age of Calamity Day 1 as well. I think that's going to get a pretty hefty patch soon, to be honest. But yeah, Cyberpunk, I've got that whenever it comes out, 10th of December probably. I'll be interested to see what that's like on Steam. But I think...
Damn, that's going to have so many bugs on.
Yeah.
It's going to be patched for the next 10 years.
For Nintendo, I don't think there's anything to really worry about. And I think if there is a problem, it's usually a rare occurrence. So I think you can be fairly confident buying a first or second party Nintendo game on day one. And the fact that they don't really lose their value means, as HOT says, you are part of the zeitgeist. If you want to be. But if
you're playing it on the first day when everybody else is. Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't buy other games. I try to get everything on sale as cheap as possible. So I'm not part of the zeitgeist on anything else. But I do think, if there's something you want to play and you don't want to spend much money on it, at least when you do buy it, okay, this is probably going to be a finished product that works well. And I honestly think people who buy AAA games on day one for 70 quid, I don't understand it. And I never will. I think it's crazy, especially when 2 months later they're usually half price. So, but it's their money. If they want to burn it, then
Last of Us Part 2 for £25.
Yeah.
How much did you spend on Last of Us Part 2, Greg?
I think it was around $31.99 on the PlayStation Store, but I got credit from Shop 2, which made it, there was a few pound off that, so it was probably pretty close to that, 26 or $24.99 or whatever mark it was.
Yeah, so what's the point in buying the day one?
Yeah, I mean, that came out earlier this year, so if waited a few months and got it for a much cheaper price. My days of buying games on day one are becoming rarer and rarer. Like Nick says, like Nintendo games, yes, but it depends what it is for me now. Well, if Mario Kart 9 came out tomorrow, you can bet your ass I'll be there day one to pay whatever it is. And part of that is, yes, Nintendo games don't go down in price, so whether you're buying it on day one or day 601, the difference in price is either going to be non-existent, or they'll maybe have thrown 33% off on one of their rare eShop sales. So yeah, it depends on the game. If it's something I'm really, really wanting to play, like super excited for, which again is rare, I will like absolutely get it day one. But on other consoles like PlayStation 4, for example, I've picked up quite a few games recently, and it's like the other day I was buying Christmas presents for people, and like it's been Black Friday weekend, so there's been like games and stuff on sale, and I've seen like Spider-Man, which was, did that come out last year or the year before? I'm not sure, but it was obviously like it was one of the biggest games when it came out, and there was Death Stranding, which was last year, and absolutely everybody was talking about that, both in good aspects and bad aspects. And I picked them both up for $13.99 in Black Friday sale. So, like, why would I have paid £50 or £60? Like, we've talked many times in the past about the sizes of our backlogs and the number of games that we need to get to. So, like, unless it's something you desperately want to play on day one, like, why not just play something that you already have and wait for the game to be like 60-70% cheaper in a sale. Like I bought Dirt Rally 2.0 there about a month ago maybe or more, and it was under a tenner for the Game of the Year edition, and I'm absolutely loving that game. Did I need it back when it originally released? No. And again, whenever it originally came out, there were a lot of complaints that there was lots of content missing. Like there was, like it didn't have Sweden, so there was no no snow stages or anything. So there's just been a lot of stuff came out for that game after. So the Game of the Year editions that have all that content it's not a practice I particularly like, I suppose, in some ways. Although at least when you're buying the Game of the Year edition, at least you know you have everything there. So yeah, I got that for under a tenner, and like amazing. If I bought the game originally when it came out for, I imagine probably about £50, and then the DLC was probably a decent chunk of money as well. Like I've saved so much money, and I will continue to save money by waiting. I don't see why I wouldn't wait.
I'm in exactly the same boat. So to kind of sum up this laissez affair and laissez-faire attitude of developers, Mike has brought into question, we've talked about already, game developer pressure, and he brings up the game of X11113, that GameCube remake. The developers apologised that the game came out in such a state that it did, and said, we had to pivot to home working for the teams, and we had unexpected delays in the development schedule, and because of COVID-19 and all that. But we're trying to get now a day one patch fixing all the issues, but the development of the day one patch has hit some problems as well. Then why not delay the game itself?
You need to make money.
Yeah. Just give it a couple of weeks and put out at least with a day one patch already. I think that sums up our thoughts on it, boys. Anything else to add for this topic from HOT?
I think I see Mike's got there Miyamoto's quote, a delayed game is eventually good, a rushed game is forever bad. That's not true anymore.
Yeah.
You can always fix it now, and that's why I think Nintendo still have that philosophy, even though technology has allowed them to ignore that philosophy. And I think other developers just have the pressure of money, basically, and making back that money that they've invested as quickly as possible and as much as possible. But for a game like 13, it was stupid not to delay it, because now everybody knows it's rubbish. So, if they got a few decent amount of sales on the first couple of days, once the word has spread around the internet that don't touch this, it's even worse than the original. Like looking, I mean.
And doesn't look as good.
Yeah, and that's it. The game's over. They've shot themselves in the foot completely, because now nobody's going to want to play it because it's so bad. I don't know. I have one more thing that I wanted to say that we didn't touch on, and it was about games as a service. I think it was the Mario Maker situation that has not annoyed me, but you could see it coming, really, couldn't you, I suppose? And I think with this, I would hope that increments of consoles are going to be developed now. We don't need a new generation every time. Technology is not improving at the rate it was back in the 80s and 90s. And I think that there's a case to be made for a console to exist for not just 8 or 10 years, but longer. And I personally would like to see these games like Splatoon, Smash Brothers, Mario Maker, these online-enabled games, I would like them to be like a game as a service, and that the updates do come in big chunks every year or whatever, and that it is an ongoing thing. Destiny is a good example of that on PC, Destiny 2, and Xbox and PS4, 5, I don't know, 4 I think it's on. I don't play it, I have it, and I've got a friend who's obsessed with it, and like every new DLC that comes out is a big moment in the Destiny scene. And old stuff gets removed, people complain about it, the developers rethink things, but it's a discussion between the gamers and the developers. What do they want? What don't they want? What do they want to see more of? And I think there's definitely space for that in gaming, and I think it needs to be a better dialogue between the developers and the players. I'm not talking about just making every game free and doing microtransactions like Fortnite is rubbish. But if it's a game that is a solid game that's got a lot of fans, like Splatoon, like Destiny, like Mario Maker, why not build it into the whole generation of the console? Release it in the first couple of years, and then as the console continues to exist or upgrade slightly, if the Pro version does come out, why not just keep that ticking along instead of it like bringing up a whole sequel? Make it into a community sort of experience. And I think that's what they're kind of doing with Smash Brothers by having like DLC Pack 2, and then maybe, I know we probably won't, but we might get DLC Pack 3, and then they could release the full game with the DLC every couple of years, like what's been up to this point, just, kick sales forward again. The same for Splatoon, 2-year roadmap. I thought it worked out pretty well. We had, Splatfests every month. We had new levels being added from the beginning to the end of the first year.
These things should be continuing.
And I think
they should just be...
Because it's for online games though only. I'm not talking about single-player games here. But for these games that are specifically designed to be online experiences, I think if you can take care of them and develop them over time gradually, not adding too much in one go, but just sort of incrementally doing it, it can keep people engaged. And like Mario Tennis, for example, that was great for the 6 or whatever months when Nintendo was working on it, and then it just died and everybody stopped playing it completely. Like, I don't think there's an online community anymore for that game. But if they just sort of, I would say, spread out the DLC, the free DLC for that, maybe added the new modes not after 3 months but after 6, 8, 9 months, and just sort of taken a little bit more care of it. Because the impression that I got with Mario Tennis was that the game wasn't ready, so they just chucked it out and then added the stuff that they'd planned later. But I think the game was like fairly complete when it came out. But I think they could have done everything much more slowly and tried to, have more tournaments, engage people a little bit more with the game.
This is my point, Nintendo. I put a smile on my face when you said Nintendo. Well, Nintendo themselves need to listen to their consumers and feedback both ways. I thought, Nintendo have got to change a lot.
But no, this is the thing, because they do it really well with Splatoon and Smash Brothers, but just not with other games.
I think they need to be. I think they need to be doing more though.
Yeah.
The Smash Brothers has got these tournaments every week.
Exactly.
They keep on coming. Splatoon, it kind of dried up. And
it dried up, definitely.
Enough.
Mm-hmm.
And why aren't they continuing it?
I don't
say, oh, sorry, we stopped it. Let's chuck out another load of Splatfest.
I do think they're gonna. I think Splatoon 3 is probably gonna come. To be honest,
it's got to be.
Which. Yeah. I'm kind of on the fence about, because once Splatoon 3 comes out, the second game is worthless. Like, that's it. It's like Mario Maker on the Wii U. It's dead, and it's just going to be erased from history. And that's why I think having these games as a platform is better to the preservation of them in the future. That's just my personal take. I think some people maybe will disagree, but that's how I see it personally.
I think Greg said in the past as well, I can see Mario Kart going down that route
and
as well.
I would be happy for that. Add new tracks every year.
Yeah, Mario Kart Ultimate, and they can just release some of the old tracks every now and again and make new tracks.
And like weekly events and things like that as well to challenge people, get people to keep on playing. You got to get people back in there,
Yeah.
I don't think they do it often enough.
No. Funnily enough, I was actually going to bring up Mario Tennis Aces as well, because... obviously I said my day one purchase is getting rarer, but if I hadn't jumped on the boat at Mario Tennis Aces when it first came out, the game's not there really anymore to play, certainly in an online capacity. So sometimes you need to purchase the game early because that's when the people are going to be playing it, and if you want to play online with lots of people, that's the time. If I make if I spent a couple hours now to make a Mario Maker level and Mario Maker 2 even, I don't know how many of you guys or how many people in the forum are actually checking into Mario Maker regularly or whatever. So, is it going to be worth my time making that level just if nobody's going to play it or whatever? I mean, that's the thing. If I didn't have a Switch and I just picked up Mario Maker for the Wii U, right now, if I bought it this week. I mean, I'm not really going to be getting the same game that I got when I did buy it back when it first came out on Wii U, because I'm not going to be able to share levels anymore, and so yeah. I suppose you have to pick and choose which games are worth picking up when they come out and which ones aren't. I was going to say something else, and for some reason it's completely I've lost it. But I know Nick mentioned earlier about games you buy now physically is effectively just a license to get the download version, and that is pushing me towards going entirely digital now. I'm reluctant to do that in terms of Nintendo games specifically, because they don't drop in price really. So there's if I buy that for I bought Animal Crossing there, for example, digitally when it came out. That game, I don't really like it. I probably would have got rid of it now if it was physical and got a good chunk of my money back, but that money's gone now. I'm sure I will play it again, but whatever, it is what it is. If I bought a game digitally on the PlayStation for cheaper or whatever, you know that game is not gonna, if I bought the physical version or whatever, it's gonna deplete in value and not be worth anything really anyway, so you might as well go digital if you want to. So yeah, I think about Spyro the Dragon, the trilogy that came out there recently, only the first game is on the Switch cartridge. So the reservations about servers and how long games are going to be available for in the digital front is the thing that actually worries me the most. And I know that's sort of a tangent on what we're really talking about, but it's kind of scary because you don't know. Anything can happen. You can have all these great games downloaded on your machine, on your whatever console you have, or backed up on hard drive or whatever, but eventually a time might come where that game is not available to download from anywhere, and your console stops working for whatever reason, and it's completely gone. And you can't just buy, if something goes wrong with my N64 and it stops working, yes, it's going to cost me a bit, but I can buy another N64 and all my cartridges are still going to work when I put them in. You don't really own anything anymore, and that's scary.
But I mean, it's the same with music and films for a lot of people. They all sold their CDs and films and subscribe on Netflix or whatever, Apple Music, Spotify, streaming. Which, for me, I don't think I'll ever do that with games. I think I'd always prefer to own the real copy. But with Steam, what I said before, the fact that you've got 15 plus years of history there, that gives me hope that Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo will follow suit. And I think if they try to delete games from history, I think I would hope there would be a big enough backlash of people who would say, look, we can't get this game anymore. We don't want
March
you to get
31st.
We don't want you to
Fire
get
Emblem and Super Mario 3 All-Stars.
Yeah, that's not good either.
You move on, you develop. For a long time I was physical all the time. I'm scared of losing this. I want to have all these games, and within the last couple of years, my transition has just been major. I'm just ready to go pretty much everything digital now.
My only reservations are the size of. I'm starting to clean the fridge already on my 400 gigabyte SD card on the Switch. It's I had to delete because we finished it anyway. I had to archive rather Borderlands, the first one, Game of the Year edition, to make space for 25.6 gigabyte download for XCOM 2.
But again, that's a thing that's becoming an irrelevance as well. Not so much on the Switch because of the cartridges, but you buy a physical game on your PS5, you have to install that thing anyway on the system. It was the same with the PS4 and the Xbox One. You have to install it on the system anyway. So the physical thing is you just stick it in, so it allows you to play it. That's it.
No, I've got no space left either. I've only got 200 gigabytes, and I've got 7 or 8 or 9 games deleted, like Spyro, Resident Evil 4, Akami, just because they're too big to fit on there.
Some of them's no loss either.
Yep.
That sounds nice.
Well, I tried to call the end of the podcast earlier, boys, but we got another 15 minutes out of it, but it's good going. Well done. So I'll call it this time. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and give us a like if you've enjoyed our content. You can also check out our other great content on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and the N-E Café podcast from all good podcast providers. Just follow the links in the description below.